the mayor of a town, bursts into a room and screams at a couple of children to get out. Despite hearing their cries of pain, this shit still forcefully shoves them away. A nearby merchant offers him 5 silver coins, seemingly buying the 2 kids for himself. Although the mayor argues that it's too cheap, the dealer states that he isn't running a charity. He insists that they should be thankful, as others wouldn't even consider buying such useless products. Understanding their situation, he's left with no choice but to accept the deal and urges them to take the children away. The villagers look on in disgust, relied to finally get rid of the evil god's servants. The ability of humans to use magic has already been questioned multiple times. In the past, however, to this day, nobody has ever been able to give an answer. All they know are the incantations that have been passed down since ancient times and the power they bring forth to the world. Magic has been used to help people with their livelihoods, as well as to advance human civilization. On the other hand, it's also been utilized on numerous battlefields. To take countless lives, incantations echo in the middle of the forest, and a magician's staff glows in preparation for a spell. Right as he's about to release the magic, a blade sinks itself into the middle of his forehead. One might think that magic is powerful, but not almighty. The same can be said for its procedures, as its effects are already predetermined. For example, a sword sent flying forward would mercilessly end a person's life. While some might believe in this, most people would simply scoff at such beliefs, retracting his blade from the magician's skull. A young man asks his pursuer who they are and why they attacked him with his comrades dead. The lone survivor trembles at the question, recognizing the sword magic being cast. Against them, he tries to run away as the blades are sent in his direction from above. An assassin-like man, presumably part of the group, studies the situation. The report given to them did mention that their target uses sword magic, but they never realized that it was such a strong power. Calming down, he reminds himself that the enemy is just another sorcerer, sure that he can win in a close-range fight. He leaps down with his blade at the ready without batting an eye. The young man blocks the assassin with his own weapon with a terrifying glare. He points out how obvious the assassin is, with his bloodlust basically gushing out from his presence. Sure that he has the upper hand in a knife fight against a magician, he regains his footing and unleashes a series of stabs. However, he's left stunned as his opponent parries his sword out of his hands, making him wonder how a sorcerer could be that. Skilled rejecting his assumption, the young man reveals that he isn't a sorcerer, but a swordsman. In an instant, he brings his blade to the assassin's neck and deals the final blow. The port town of Thoria is the second town in the kingdom of Nagas. Its current prosperity is thanks to the blessing of the forest, as well as the lively coastal trade in and in within the town. A group of adventurers are deep in a serious conversation. The ruthless swordsman from before Eldis is with his companions, recounting the earlier incident with the assassins. He's being questioned about his decision to kill them without getting any information. He argues that he did nothing wrong. They were trying to take his life, so it was only fair that he fought to take theirs. Ted, another swordsman from the group, says it would have been easy for him to keep one alive for interrogation. Unbothered, the young man states that it's too much trouble and that it's simply a matter of cutting down anyone who attacks him. Norris the archer tries to laugh at his merciless remark. Aelia the sorcerer expresses slight discomfort at his choice. Knowing he's fully capable of capturing his enemies alive, seeing how the pursuers knew about his sword magic, the group guesses that they might be related to the military. It must be an act of revenge, as Eldis acted rudely toward the general. The origin of the conflict stems from when he was escorting a merchant out of the town during the job. They encountered a fight between the military and some bandits. As the bandits were greater in number, the trained soldiers struggled quite a bit. Although they were about to win, some of the foolish bandits saw and approached him, so he had no choice but to lend the soldiers a hand. He easily overpowered them using his sword magic, but it had one small drawback. Seeing his skill with the sword, the general tried to recruit him into the military as a magic teacher, outright refusing the offer. He asserts that he is in no way obligated to teach the army sorcerers his sword magic, insulted by the mere mercenaries' rejection. The man says that the opportunity isn't something that commoners like him come across so easily, patronizing him. These instructs and design a monthly contract. stating that he'll be paid 500 gold coins per month. Absolutely enraged, the general argues that a common soldier's salary is a single gold coin per month. His men try to calm him down, but he simply calls the boy a fool, adding that he won't get another chance to join the military. Back at the Inn, Elds nonchalantly rests on the table while he was annoyed by the general's arrogance. It's not like his sword magic can be taught to others anyway. Aelia tries to reason that he didn't have to refuse in such a rude manner. Shaming a high-ranking officer in front a large crowd will surely cause some grudges to be formed. Norris, already having accepted the young man's tendency to make enemies, just laughs at the situation. Ted says it's nothing to scoff at and turns his attention to the troublemaker. While well aware of his monstrous strength, he dissuades Eldies from making so many enemies, understanding their concerns. He assures them that he won't cause problems for the group and promises to be on his best behavior. When dealing with nobles and the church hearing this, the three mercenaries play around and bet on him, not knowing what it means to be prudent. The forest of Caucasus grows south of Thor. It's been an invaluable source of fuel, food, and herbs since ancient times and has been a pillar of support for the town's development. However, the forest is also host to several wild animals as well as unexplored regions where powerful monsters dwell, while it's the job of mercenaries to fight. It's not like there's always a battlefield for them to fight on treading into a dangerous place like the forest. Upon the request of merchants then becomes an important source of income. For now, the request that their group is on is a simple task of finding a good spot for tree logging, looking around the area. They see a pretty good spot that's close to the main road. As long as the path is maintained, there shouldn't be any problems for their client. Moreover, the quality of the trees around it is also remarkable, presumably worth an investment. That being said, they spotted several twin-bladed beasts in the vicinity, so there will be a need to clean up the forest first. It'll be quite the task, but it just means more work and income for them. So it's no problem at all looking behind him. Ted notices Elds looking far away and scolds him for not paying attention. The young man scratches his head and says that his participation is only temporary. They accepted the job as the morning star of the midnight sun, so it has no direct relation to him. Aelia approaches him. She's asked before, but once more offers him a place in their party, as they've been teaming up quite often. Anyway, he gives her a vague answer, and she already knows why. Although it's been an entire year, he still hasn't given up on finding his former party members. Despite having no leads whatsoever, she approaches him and cautiously suggests that they might not be alive anymore, unwilling to give up hope. He shouts that it's only been a year and that he never expected to find them in such a short period anyway. Their conversation is interrupted by a loud cry for help from nearby. Ted rushes to the rescue. Despite not knowing anything about the Ea Salant, his teammates try to stop him, but the swordsman has already made it far. Having no choice but to follow, they remind themselves to do something about his meddlesome personality. El simply smiles at his temporary companions and runs toward the commotion as well upon reaching the source of the screams. They see a horrific sight. They've arrived too late, and the bandits have already taken out all of their victims, seeing the uninvited party. The archers shoot their weapons to get rid of the witnesses. Ted and Aelia block the attacks, and Norris asks Eldies to protect him well. The fight continues, and the barrage is unrelenting, but they're worthless. In the face of the skilled swordsman, an arrow flies by, landing far from its target. Norris notches his own arrow and takes a bandit out with a single strike, taking his place on the front lines. Ted makes sure that Affiliate is safe from harm and says that she doesn't have to use magic yet. With their numbers whittling down one by one, the leader of the thugs dashes in with his battle axe, planning to distract the party's swordsman. He commands his men to get rid of the archer and sorcerers. Annoyed, El throws his swords to the sky, reiterating that he isn't a sorcerer. With his command, the blades fall and fly across the battlefield, slicing down the bandits. One by one, the leader slams his axe down on Ted's shield. Unaware of the slaughter that took place behind him, he orders his men to take the rest of the party out and to make sure that Aelia is captured alive. However, he's shocked to see the gruesome sight at his back. Bloody-stained swords float over his men, who all lay on the ground, lifeless. He's the only one left, and before could even understand what just happened, Ted raised his weapon and brought it down on the horrid old man. With the battle over, they look around and find corpses strewn throughout the area. It seems like the victims were a party, escorting a merchant having nothing else to do. They decide to take what they can and return to town. Unfortunately, they can't take everything. There, as the horse pulling the carriage was killed, Norris calls Eldies over to check inside the merchandise, expecting to find a few gems or bags of spices. However, he finds something more shocking. Inside, Eldest notices something odd and asks if there's something wrong, as the archer won't answer. He draws the blinds and checks for himself. There he finds two children in ragged clothes cowering by the corner. Taking a closer look, they realize that the kids' limbs are chained and shackled together. They're brought outside, and the rest of the party looks over them, obviously uncomfortable with what they found. The situation has become complicated, and they aren't sure what to do. Confused Eldies identifies them as child slaves and suggests that they take them into town. For now, Ted tells them to wait for a bit as he has to think of the right course of action with a deep sigh. He presses his hand. To this temple finding object humans was bad enough, but now they have to deal with twins, oblivious. Eldest asks what an object human is, and he's met with a stunned reaction from the rest of the group. Not knowing if he's being serious, they talk about how his cluelessness exceeds their expectations. The condescending reaction annoys him, so Norris apologizes and kindly offers to explain. In their world, object humans are people that are bought or sold with money. These might include children sold by their parents, sinners, or prisoners of war. Their arms and legs are shackled, and they have no freedom whatsoever. Since they are considered objects, they aren't protected by the law. Either even slaves are better off. They might be one of the lowest class humans, but they're still considered humans and are entitled to their own rights. On the other hand, object humans are strictly seen as objects. For example, if someone kills a slave, then it still be considered murder. However, for object humans, their treatment is completely up to their owner. No matter what they do, the law won't judge them. The worst case scenario would be getting killed for entertainment. Some might even get their limbs amputated to get put on as a piece of decoration. If an owner abuses their slaves, then their reputation will worsen. However, abusing human objects is different, as people will simply think that an owner is doing a bad job of managing their products. Just providing them with clothes to wear is already a sign that they're treated better than others to make things worse. Ted points out that they're twins. LD's questions. This once again, his confusion regarding object humans and taboo children begins to make them curious about his upbringing. Twins are considered taboo children in this world and are said to be disciples of the evil god. They bring harm to the holy goddess, the greatest existence in the world, who is also the one who created the earth. During the previous war in the divine realm, it was the evil god that had a confrontation with the goddess. The only ones to hurt the goddess were the evil army's vanguards, the twin devils. The words ignite something dark in Eldies, as the story seems eerily familiar. Noticing this, Ted tells him not to make such a scary face and recognizes his genuine hatred for the goddess, from the church's point of view, as something that has a connection with the entities that hurt the goddess. Twins are born with an unforgivable sin to bear. He looks Aelia in disappointment and asks if she believes in such stories. She says that nobody knows if the story is just a myth. However, living in their world as twins is a truly horrifying experience. That is a fact. Night falls, and the party sets up their camp in the woods, unable to just leave the children behind. They ended up taking the twins along, saving themselves from the bitter taste that would come with abandoning such poor things. If they were normal human objects, then they could have easily been sold in town. However, nobody would buy twins who are often just disposed of at birth, at times when unable to find a buyer, unsold. Old goods aren't always killed, but things certainly won't end well for them. Eldies tries to get a specific example of what might end up happening to them, but the possibilities are too atrocious. So Ted asks him not to push for an answer. Norris cuts into their conversation and asks if they plan on taking the children along. Frankly speaking, they'll just get in the way of their missions. Just the fact that their children annoys him, but seeing their shackles, he guesses that they probably can't even walk properly. Studying them, Eldest approaches the twins and reaches hand out to the metal chains. They flinch at his movements with an otherworldly power. Something within him analyzes their binding and gives him the option to release their locks. Surprised, Alia tries to stop him, screaming that the shackles of human objects shouldn't be removed haphazardly, as they're all linked together. They're linked in such a way that when one is removed from the bearer, then all the others will burst into flames. Ignoring her warning, Eldis continues with what he's doing. Within a few moments, the bindings come undone and fall to the ground. With a loud clang, the others are stunned at what he just did. Defending himself, he says he removed both of them at once, so there should be no problem. The swordsman and archer laugh it off, amused by how there seem to be no rules for him. On the other hand, Alia is completely thrown off as a sorcerer. She charges and shakes him by the collar, urgently demanding that he explain himself. He repeats his words earlier, but she insists that there should be no way for him to use multiple spells simultaneously, especially with no incantation at all. Slightly frustrated by the reaction, he questions why incantations are a prerequisite for magic to him. It would be much more flexible if they didn't use such a roundabout way. Paying no mind to Alia's shock and confusion, he states that he will be taking the twins in return. He gives up his share of the goods from the carriage. While there's no problem with that, the rest of the group is unable to comprehend his decision. There's no benefit to taking in twins he doesn't even know. He won't be able to make money off them, and the town might not even let them in. He remembers Alia's words: if they're true, then abandoning the children would be too irresponsible of him. Not comfortable with leaving the children anyway, Ted accepts the young man's proposal, holding the release shackles. Elis approaches the twins and promises to never bind them again. The two look at each other in unfamiliar confusion. While he goes off to sleep, Alia tries to stop him, wanting to hear more about what he did earlier, but he ignores her as usual. The night passes and a new day comes. From Eld's perspective, the need to use incantations is a misconception on the sorcerer's part. As an analogy, he questions if a swordsman needs to shout out his attack before slashing his sword or making a feint. She counters, saying magic is completely different from swordsmanship, which relies on physically moving one's body, unwilling to concede his point. He asks her to explain how her body moves, simply by wanting to make it move, as she's unable to come up with an answer. Ted joins in and says that no one ever questions why their body moves as such. All they can say in return is the fact that it's just how it is. In other words, to Eldis, using magic is as natural as walking and running still. In disbelief, Aelia confirms that without being barred by incantations, he can easily cast 4 different spells simultaneously, while she gets the principle of the idea. The reality of doing it is incomprehensible. Laughing at how incredible he is as a person, Norris jokingly says that it would be a waste to let someone so unusual slip from their hands. Ted lightly asked him to join their party once more, as if used to the question. He robotically says that he'll think about it. Regarding the twins behind them, the party decides to keep the matter a secret. After all, they can't have Eldis attracting even more trouble. That being said, people would probably think that they're insane anyway. As they walk forward, the twins follow, trembling, but still holding on to each other tightly. They look much better and normal since they were given children's wear from the carriage, but the slight outfit change probably won't be enough to convince the town's gatekeeper soon after they finally see Thor's gate and are relieved to have arrived before nightfall. Upon reaching the gate, the guards almost instantly recognize the twins, wanting to avoid trouble. The party tries to reason that they're just escorting the children inside. Unfortunately, they don't buy it and turn them away for bringing evil entities well aware of how things get done. Norris approaches the soldier and slips him a coin. For his troubles, convinced by the bribe, he lets the party in, reminding them not to cause any trouble after crossing the gate. The archer calls out to Eldis and opens his palm with a smile, understanding what he meant. The young man fishes out a coin from his pocket and repays. His companion: such situations will be common. When walking around with the twins, protesting will only cause a commotion, and he'll end up with even more enemies. Although that in itself would be an amusing sight to see Eldis. Thanks him for the advice and apologizes for the trouble. Ted waves it off and says that they'll be off to report their findings. Alia still has a lot she wants to say, but kindly offers her help. If there's anything he needs a woman's help with this, the group finally goes their separate ways. left with the twins. L. These plans to head back to his usual inn, hoping that they have enough rooms to shelter the kids. Suddenly, the people around them take notice and point out the twins' presence throughout the day. They encounter several harsh words and actions. He didn't expect the discrimination to be this bad. They arrive at the he frequents, but they're immediately turned away, while he's confused at the innkeeper. Hostile behavior. She's equally confused and asks if he suddenly built a deep grudge against her, unwilling to take the money. She gives him the option of getting rid of the kids or leaving with his belongings. Without room for discussion, he packs up and looks for a place to stay. However, things were the same wherever he went. The people's hatred towards the twins was more intense than he had imagined. The children pant behind him, obviously exhausted from the constant walking, while he's trying to think of what to do. A bright lady calls his attention and asks if he's looking for a place to stay. She offers him a bed at their inn, while he'd be happy to accept. He confirms if she'll take in the twins as well, about to insist the children are no problem. She gradually realizes the situation, and silence takes over the conversation. A while later, Eldest enters the inn's room with plates of food. He is glad to finally have a meal. After the long day, the deal with the innkeeper ripped him off big time, but she doesn't seem to be a bad person. She felt bad for the kids, but as she's running a business, it took a bit more money to get them a room. Placing the plates on the table, he calls the children over to eat before the food gets cold. As he's wolfing down on his plate, he notices the twins who are still frozen in the corner of the room, unable to force them to eat. Eldest finishes his own meal and goes. Off to sleep morning comes, and the sunshine wakes him up from his deep sleep. Sitting up, he finds the children still in the corner of the room. He wonders if they fell asleep without eating, but thankfully sees the empty plate on the table. Given the clean tableware, they must have been starving. Looking over the sleeping pair, he guesses that they must have trouble eating properly. When people are looking, always shivering and sticking together, they must have had a terrible life so far, all because they were born. As twins covering them with a warm blanket, he vows to protect them from that moment on. By the time